UFOs, monsters, mysteries. You're listening to Talking Weird. And now, from a cabin deep in the Northwoods, your hosts, Dr. Dean Bertram and Jenn Durrell.
Well, hey, baby.
Hey, baby.
How is life in the wonderful state of Missouri?
It's good. It's good. Nice and hot here right now. So
Well, that is good.
pretty good.
Have you had
How about Wisconsin?
It's spooky here tonight. We had one of those. We get weather here where all of a sudden it gets really hot and weird things happen, and you get a really thick fog. And there's a kind of next to me, although I'm mainly in woods, there's kind of this, I don't know what it is. It's this open kind of plain. It was just filled with fog tonight, and you could see the fog out in the woods as well. So it looked like a horror movie getting ready to happen.
Perfect.
So if my camera goes out and I get whisked away and it comes back and there's just an empty seat, you'll know something came in the fog. John Carpenter style and got me. Some sin from years ago. I finally caught up with me. What about, speaking of sins from years ago and strange creatures in the fog, is there any haunted tales from the historical location or the historic location you work at?
No, it's nice and quiet. But you know, we're trying to like debunk a lot of things, and so we put cameras in and at night. So there is something that was recently caught that we're kind of not sure about. But what's neat is that it happens at the same time in the evening, always at 1 something in the morning, either at 1:07, 1:06, or at 1:48, 1:47. The motion thing goes off. And we actually did catch like a white speck go past, but it's fairly big. So we're not sure what it is. So, you know, that kind of goes along with the stone tape theory that we already were thinking. So we're just trying to, you know, debunk the whole thing, whether or not it's an animal or if it's a loop.
It might be a very scheduled possum breaking in every night or something.
I doubt that.
Following the timetable. Me
awesome.
Too. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe we can ask. A bat. Also, it kind of flew past the camera.
Yeah.
A white bat,
you
perhaps.
Can set it off.
That's spooky.
I don't know. Who knows? There's even a phantom light that they caught too. So outside.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, you should do a live from there one Saturday night. That would be cool.
It's not something that's like active.
I'm just joking.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can maybe chat a little about hauntings with tonight's guest, although that wasn't the purpose of the show. But
yes.
I certainly know that he would have an opinion because he's quite the polymath in all things weird and wonderful and paranormal and psychic and the like. He was once known as the psychic priest, speaking of things psychic. He worked alongside famous paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren on several haunting and possession cases. Ordained in the Episcopal Church, he has also been a stage magician, a teacher, an author, an actor, a practitioner of the silver mind control method, and a hypnotherapist. His most recent book is Your Successful Life, and there's also a companion volume called Your Successful Life, the journal. At any rate, I'm delighted to welcome back to the show one of our all-time favorite guests, Edd Schultz.
Hey,
babies.
Hey, babies.
You're the third baby, Ed. I always say it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Great.
I get a charge out of that. Hey, baby. Hey, baby.
Hey, baby.
I like that. That's a nice touch.
It's great to have you back. Since we had you on last, your new book's come out. I don't have a copy of that one here yet, but could you hold up a copy of your new book?
Yes, I have it. Where is it? Here it is, right here. Your Successful Life. I co-wrote it with my wife, Lee.
Okay.
And the subtitle is A Practical Guide to Improving Your Life. And it does have a companion volume. A companion volume that's your successful life journal, so you can keep track of your goals and successes and all that sort of good stuff.
Oh, that sounds awesome. And your last one was Be Still and Know, a Christian guide to
Yes.
meditation, I believe. I do have that
Right.
somewhere.
Practical Guide to Christian Meditation.
There you go.
Also
I think
has
Jen
a-
has it.
I have mine
Also has
too.
great. Also has a companion volume, your
Yeah.
Be Still and Know journal.
I have it somewhere here. It's great. I did a big library because I've recently started my little sideshow, My Weird Library, and I did a collection of my books, moving them to appropriate places when I kind of reset everything up. And I don't know, I've got about a dozen bookshelves here. I'm like, where on earth is Ed's book? I was frantically looking for it this afternoon. I couldn't find it. Anyway, it'll show up as
Dean, look in the old desk in the same drawer where the exorcist thing is.
That's right. For those who don't know, Ed did a number of remote viewing experiments with me, and we'll be doing an even more complicated psychic experiment tonight. But one of the ones Ed did was you told me to look in the old desk for, I can't remember what it was you wanted me to look in there anyway. And sure enough,
Right.
in there, because Ed, as I mentioned in the introduction, was an exorcist when he was a priest, and he actually worked alongside Ed and Lorraine Warren. And in there, sitting there on this old roll top kind of desk thing I have, was at the very top of it was an old copy of 40 Times, which had the cover of it was that iconic image from The Exorcist, and it had The Exorcist written below the 40 Times headline. And I thought, or whatever you call the header of the magazine, and I thought, my goodness, she kind of sent chills up my spine when I opened it in there. That was very strange.
Right. I was in
Very
the drawer.
strange. Well, we're going to, I don't think we'll jump straight into the experiment tonight, which I'm looking so forward to having you do, but perhaps maybe because it's going to be about, I don't know if diagnosing is the right term, but feeling out if somebody has any ailments or if there's something wrong with them. So as somebody who has various, I suppose, psychic abilities and is in tune with healing, how do you normally go about it? If you are trying to, assess somebody, or if you're trying to help somebody, what kind of processes are there? Because I honestly have no idea, so I'm very curious.
Okay. Well, actually, I'd like to preface what I'm doing and saying tonight with a couple of things that I think are important.
Sure.
If that's okay. First of all, as we've mentioned in previous shows, I come at all of these paranormal things with a sort of multimodal view. Part of it is, I look at it from the perspective of psychology. I do have a master's degree in theology with a specialization in psychology of religion. I also look at it from a parapsychological point of view, and in my case, a theological point of view. And having been a philosophy major in undergraduate school, I also come at it from a sort of what I like to think of as a rational point of view. My feeling is that anybody who goes into investigating the paranormal with just one point of view is doing themselves and the whole study of the paranormal a disservice. Because if you come in with just one point of view and you think, I've got it, I've got all the answers, this is what it is, definitely this is what it is, then maybe you're wrong. And maybe there are all sorts of other facets of what you're looking at that you don't even think of or you don't even look at because you're only coming from one point of view. Follow that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a healthy approach.
Thank you. I think for me, it's a balanced approach because when we're talking about the paranormal, and I like to have what I consider a holistic approach too. We're talking about body, we're talking about mind, and we're talking about spirit. So if we don't take all three of those into consideration, then we're not going to get to the truth probably, because we won't be seeing all sides of it. And again, that having a background in philosophy, I know probably nobody knows absolute truth. And when somebody states to you, this is absolutely true, they're probably way off course. Nobody knows everything. What looks like one thing maybe another. I mean, maybe it's UFO, maybe it's a weather balloon, maybe it's a hallucination.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't consider the possibility that it could be any one of those or a combination of those, then maybe, you just go on and into the, I hate to use a term like this, into the lunatic fringe.
Well, I agree. I think that's one of the problems with all different branches of the paranormal is people tend to look at the phenomenon, or as you said, it might be phenomena from their kind of bias. So it's likely that somebody who's a UFO investigator is going to approach the phenomenon with wearing those kind of goggles, while somebody who's a Bigfoot investigator might approach a similar phenomenon with very different goggles on. Same with perhaps a paranormal investigator. So yeah.
Right. And that one of the reasons that I come at things with that point of view is because of my own experience and my own training. Like with this whole area of healing, as an Episcopal priest, that was part of my ministry. Was not specifically healing, but things like the laying on of hands and praying for people to be healed and all that sort of stuff. Not necessarily a lot of miraculous healing type things. I've never been a quote faith healer, but that was part of the perspective that I came at it from. But also from a parapsychological point of view, as you mentioned in the introduction, I'm a graduate of silver mind control. I studied that back in the 1970s when I was living in Massachusetts. And that really informed my whole spiritual life. Because one of the things that I experienced when I was in seminary was that there was no great emphasis on the spiritual dimensions of religion and of church and of ministry. A lot of it, especially in those days, now I went to seminary in the very early 70s, a lot of the emphasis was social action. We have to get out there, civil rights, war in Vietnam, all that kind of stuff, which is certainly very important, and it's part of the role of the church. But the church became totally absorbed in that, and a lot of things about spirituality were just kind of left again to the lunatic fringe. And it was because of my experience with hypnosis and with silver mind control that I really began to discover what Christian spirituality was about. I began to study meditation and the lives of Christian mystics, and it brought a lot of things together that might not have come together if I hadn't been studying parapsychology. So
Yeah, I think the church today, as I've mentioned a couple times recently on this show, does it still veers away from supernaturalism. I mean, it's obvious to say, well, it's a supernatural worldview that the world's created by God and that Jesus came to save us from our sins. But the church doesn't want to go much further than that. It doesn't want to address the type of things in Genesis 6, 1-5, or things about the divine council, or things about the gods of the nations, all these suggestions that there's all this other complicated spiritual machinations happening in the Bible from good and evil and other things. And there isn't just one simple fall like we're always taught. There's actually a number of strange rebellions and strange clashes that are, and it's all there. I mean, when you've heard it, you can't not see it, but it's not taught. It's not something that if you go to a regular, a standard, I suppose, at least Protestant church. I always say I don't have a whole lot of experience with Orthodox or Catholic, but I have enough experience with Protestant denominations to know that most pastors just won't focus on that message within the Bible. They'll talk the very almost, it's just to get people kind of ready to go to work on Monday. So it's Jesus loves you, feel good, you're saved, but the more complicated spiritual aspects of it. And I'm not saying that message that's given isn't an important message, but there's other messages and there's other data points in the Bible which are just ignored, I think, frequently by most mainstream churches today.
Yeah. And I found too, as I was studying for the ministry, that there was a certain spiritual element. I mean, God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, all of that kind of stuff, and that's important, and prayer is important. I never heard about meditation when I was in seminary. They didn't talk about that at all. And the fact that, especially in an area like healing, there can be, in the church, when we talk about healing, we're talking about, quote, spiritual healing, but there's also, there's medical healing, physical healing brought about by medicine and surgery and things like that. That's certainly part of the whole healing process. Spiritual healing has to do more with the idea that, we pray to God and God sends his Holy Spirit and to help you become whole and that sort of stuff. Well, that's fine. And that was kind of theologically, that was okay. But to talk about the role that parapsychology might have in this whole process, that was, you just didn't, A, you didn't talk about it, or B, if you did talk about it, that's the devil, So get back, get behind me, say,
Yep.
and that sort of thing, which I think damages the whole thing. In fact, I feel, as far as the parapsychological or the psychic is concerned, is that's part of the image of God that we're created in. That's one of the things that we have built in to ourselves. That's a sort of reflection of the divine, but we have tended through the years to hide it and not talk about it. I was thrilled back in the 70s when I was a young priest to come upon a book called Parapsychology of Religion. I wish I still had it in my library, but it was written by, I think it was an Episcopal priest, who had a number of psychic experiences himself, and he tried to interpret it from a theological point of view. There's plenty of instances in the Bible of things that we would call, clairvoyance or precognition or telepathy and, things like that. They didn't call it that in those days, obviously, but you could explain it in those terms and it would make sense. But I think one of the things that for me that was important was to kind of combine parapsychology and religion, just as you combine regular medicine and religion. Nobody says that doctors are anathema because they don't talk about God and they don't talk about Jesus when they're giving you surgery or giving you medications. So, what's wrong with bringing parapsychology into the whole thing? Oh, it's witchcraft. Oh. So, that's my little rant. But as I say, the idea of healing in the church was a very important one. There are, from the quote Catholic point of view, and when I say Catholic, I don't necessarily mean Roman Catholic, but from the Catholic point of view, there are 7 sacraments, one of which is holy unction or, anointing the sick with the idea that will help them heal. Well, that's part of the ministry. And I remember I would often have healing services where people would come up to the altar rail and I would lay hands on them. And that's something I'd like to talk about later on, laying on of hands, with the idea that I was, God was using me as a conduit, as an instrument for some kind of grace and some kind of healing energy, the Holy Spirit. So there's something kind of miraculous and paranormal, and people didn't always throw away their crutches and things like that, but people had an inner sense of peace, which I think is part of the whole healing process. It's healing to me is fascinating because there's so much to it, so much that we don't even know about or think about.
Yeah, I think it's probably hard to be physically well if one's has internal problems and strife. So I think even religion aside, it makes sense to me on a psychological level that if somebody's just tense with anxiety and tense with, mental trauma, it's going to be put that much more of a toll on them physically as well. So I think if you can do something, I'm sure this is partly your point. I think if you can do something to, relax those spiritual or mental or psychological tensions, then it's going to, just the fact that those tensions are gone, it's got to help to a degree in taking pressure or stress at least off the body to let it heal more.
Yeah, I just recently started looking into neuroscience, which I think is a fascinating field. And part of one of their ideas, obviously, is that things like stress produce different chemicals in your brain that affect different parts of your body. So, once we learn to manipulate some of the ways that we think and the ways that we feel, that can cause a chemical reaction in our brains that then can cause either healing or whatever in our body. And the whole idea of the placebo effect. I mean, anytime that they test any kind of medication, not meditation, but medication, they usually have a placebo group, one group that gets sugar pills, and they tell them this is the real medicine. And often, a lot of those people experience some kind of healing, some kind of recovery, because they think that they have the real medicine. And if they think that, then their body reacts that way. It reacts as though, because the subconscious mind often cannot differentiate between fantasy and reality.
Yeah.
So if it really believes something, then that's going to happen. You can think. One of the examples that I can think of, when I was first studying hypnosis, there was documentation that under hypnosis, it was possible to tell a subject, for example, that they had a burning hot coal in the palm of their hand. And just that suggestion would cause the skin on the palm of your hand to begin to blister. And it blisters because you're telling the subconscious mind, which controls a lot of the functions in your body that you don't even have to think about. But the subconscious mind is now being told, you have a burning hot coal in your hand. Now the body has to react the way it would as though there were actually one there. And that blistering is, part of the protection. So it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That the whole body, mind, spirit thing is a reality.
It's definitely true what you're talking about, because I know when I was younger, I had generalized anxiety disorder, and I had a psychiatrist tell me, he was trying to explain to me why most of my anxiety had to do with the location. And so he said that imagine there's like a box and they're all different colors, and the bad location you have all of your experiences is a brown box. And once you go on to these other colors, you're able to heal, but you'll realize when you go back to the area that's the brown box, then all of a sudden everything that you thought you've healed has just come right back. And and you don't understand why, and a lot of it has to do with the location. So I was having issues where I was living, and so that was kind of my issue, but it was all in my head, though. It wasn't really the location. It was just, so I remember him talking about that. Yeah.
I'm sure it was different associations with that location.
That
cause those things. Because when we perceive things, even though we're perceiving them with our physical senses, that's not all of what perception is about. Because, for example, when you see a dog, well, some people see a dog and, Snoopy, something like that. Other people are scared skinny. And the reason they're scared skinny is because they either have had a bad experience with a dog, or they've heard a lot of bad things about dogs. And their subconscious mind then adds all of that material into what they're perceiving. So they perceive a danger rather than, cute, soft, cuddly puppy. It's complicated.
Definitely makes sense.
So, Ed, why do you feel like you'd like to go into the experiment tonight?
Oh, okay. Let me kind of set the stage for a little bit so people know what we're doing here. There was a man in the early 1900s by the name of Edgar Casey.
Yes.
He was born in Kentucky, later moved to Virginia Beach, and I think he later moved to Alabama, something like that. Anyway, when he was a child, he began to have these visions in which an angel came to him and tried to help him with his life because he wasn't very good at school. He wasn't passing tests. And this angel basically said, Edgar, what do you want in life? And Edgar said, I want to help people. So the angel said, okay, you're going to be able to do that. Well, moving fast forward ahead a little bit, he was a photographer for a while. And he also worked for his father in, I think it was real estate or something like that. And at one point, he became mute all of a sudden. Just one day, boom, he couldn't talk. And that made it very difficult for him, obviously, to be in insurance or real estate or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And he met a traveling hypnotist who hypnotized him. And while he was in hypnosis, his voice recovered. And after he came out of the hypnosis, he was able to speak. But the hypnotist worked with him a number of times and then passed him on to another hypnotist, who then discovered that when Casey was in hypnosis, he began to talk about other things, and sort of began to talk about things that Edgar Casey himself would know nothing about. And eventually, they discovered he started talking about his own illness, his own muteness, and what caused it. And then this hypnotist said, well, gee, I wonder what would happen if I gave him the name of somebody I knew who was sick. And he did. The hypnotist gave Casey that information. And Casey, without ever having met this person, began to, quote, diagnose that person's illness with a very high degree of accuracy. And he also prescribed some kind of treatment that seemed to work. And Casey kept doing this. People would write to him from all over the place with just this basic information, name, age, and location. And Casey, while he was in this hypnotic state, would seem to be able to detect. We'll say detect. We won't say diagnose, because, and he hated to use a word like that because he wasn't a doctor. I'm not a doctor. I've never studied medicine, so I can't diagnose an illness. I may be able to detect abnormalities in the body psychically, and that's what Casey was doing. And back in the 70s, when I was studying silver mind control, they don't call it silver mind control anymore because it's not PC. Mind control sounds so devious. Whose mind are you controlling? Of course,
Right.
Jose Silva, who was the one who developed the system, would always say, when he used the word mind control, he would say, your own mind control. You are controlling your own mind. And one of the things that we would do at the end of the class, after trying different kinds of remote viewing and stuff like that, is that we would be given the name, age, and location of people who other people there in the room knew were sick or injured or something like that. And we would go into an alpha level and mentally project ourselves to this person or have this person come to us, and we would scan them and become attracted to different hotspots, so to speak, throughout their body and begin to describe different injuries and illnesses and things like that. And the very first time that I did it, I blew myself away because I was like 80% accurate, 80 or 90% accurate. The one case that I like to mention that was the most dramatic for me was somebody gave me the name, Ralph Smith, age 47. And then all of a sudden, my legs, the muscles in my legs began to twitch uncontrollably. And I said, I'm very uncomfortable. My legs are twitching. The muscles in my legs are twitching. I think Ralph has something wrong with his legs, something very seriously wrong with his legs. Well, it turned out that this guy, Ralph, was an escalator repairman, and he had recently become, his legs had recently become trapped in an escalator while he was trying to fix it. And when something like that happens to you, that's not just a telepathic thing or clairvoyant thing. It's a clairsentient thing when you actually feel it in your body. So
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing that we're going to do tonight. What I'm going to do in a few minutes is to go into my alpha level. And
Yes.
before the show, I asked you, Jen, and you, Dean, to give me the name, age, and location of someone who you knew to be sick or injured. I know nothing else about them, and to preserve those people's anonymity or whatever, I'm not going to give out their names and locations on air.
Yeah.
Jen, the person that you gave me, I'm gonna refer to as person number 2, and Dean, the one that
Okay.
you gave me, I'm gonna refer to as person number 1. I will say person number 1 is a man, and person number 2 is a woman. And when I do this, I'm going to give you sort of unfiltered all of my impressions. Now, what I'd like the two of you to do is, when I'm talking about your person,
Yeah.
I want you to give me some feedback, but the feedback that I want you to give me needs to be positive. In other words, if I say something, and I won't even give an example right now, if I say that you feel is accurate, if you can just give me a yes, okay, then what I'll do is focus in on that and give you as much information as I can. If I come up with something that you know nothing about, and again, I
Yeah.
don't want to give an example, but something that you know nothing about, don't say no.
Okay.
All I want you to say is something like, I don't have any information about that.
Okay.
Because A, I might be wrong, obviously, and not picking up the right thing, or B, I might be right and picking up something that you don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
So if you say to me no, well, then I'm going to go away from that, and maybe that's something that's
Right.
important.
So just to clarify, if it seems like it's right, we say that's accurate, and if we don't know like anything about it, like we just say we don't have any information about that.
Right.
And just so you know, too, I think one of the names might have been possibly either male or female, but as far as I know, they're both female. Just so you know.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that is important.
Yeah, because one of the names, and I won't say
Okay,
whose,
yes.
but one of the
But,
names could have been a man, or it was a name which could have been male or female, so I can see where the mistake was made. So,
okay. Well, the one that you gave me, Dean, is fairly obviously a woman.
that's correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
And Jen, the one that you gave me, you said that was a woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or isn't it?
It is.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're both
It's a
women.
woman.
Okay, so they're both female. Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. That makes it a lot easier for me. Okay, and one of the important elements too, before I get started, is one of the things that we learned in the Silva method is the sort of the idea, the belief that if you have the ability to pick up these abnormalities, to detect these abnormalities, then it stands to reason that you should also have the ability to project healing energy to help correct those abnormalities. You don't just, I mean, like, if you go into a doctor's office, you don't just say, okay, this is how I feel, doc, and he says, okay, this is what you have, that's what you have, and that's it. And then you walk away. No, the doctor says, okay, now that we know what's wrong, let's give you a prescription, or let's recommend surgery or more tests or something like that. So there's always a healing element to it. It's not just showbiz, hey, I can detect what's wrong.
Excellent.
There's always the heal, and that for me also is part of the theological dimension. I mean, if this ability to remotely view abnormalities in other people's bodies or lives, if God gave us that kind of gift, why? Well, part of the reason for me seems to be the why is, well, if you can see it, you can do something about it. And you can pray for healing, you can project healing energy, whatever your way of thinking is. So I'm going to be doing both.
Well, thank you.
And that's why just a little. I don't want to get political at the moment, but when I hear people on the news saying, our thoughts and prayers are with these people, and then other people say,
Mhm.
"Oh, the heck with your thoughts and prayers. You need to do this and you need
Oh,
to do
yeah.
that." That I feel
Mhm.
so bad because thoughts and prayers can do a lot of good in
I
these
Yeah.
agree.
instances.
I agree. I mean, if I have a problem and I know people are praying for me and are, on my side, it feels a lot better than thinking nobody's thinking about you or praying for you or on your side.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You pick up on those things again at what level that happens at, whether it's a subconscious level or whether it's a spiritual level or whether it's a conscious level, and people are rooting for you. Maybe all three, maybe all of those things combine to help us.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we ready?
We're ready.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just. I'm just going to look because I'm going to do this with my eyes closed.
Okay.
Even though I'm visually impaired, I'm half blind actually because I have this condition called visual snow. Uh, so when I'm reading things, I have to hold them up really close. And I'm going to be doing this with my eyes closed, so I won't have a chance to read them. Okay. Jen, it's funny, Jen. I knew
Mhm.
somebody with this name when I was in college.
Oh, really?
A woman, yeah, but she would be older than
Mhm.
I'm sorry, she would be older than than you told me.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let me explain what I'm going to do. I'm going to close my eyes,
Mhm.
and I'm going to be quiet for a very short time. I know dead air is terrible when you're doing something like this,
No, it's fine.
uh, but I'm going to be just long enough to get myself basically in my alpha level, and then Dean,
Yeah.
what I'm going to ask you to do
Mhm.
when I tell you, okay, now, Dean, what I'd like you to do is to count backwards from 10 to 1,
Sure.
and that'll just help me go a little bit deeper into this level of consciousness, and then I'm going to bring the people into my awareness, and we'll see what happens.
Okay. I'll be waiting
Okay,
for your cue. Mhm.
you ready? Oh, okay. Okay, Dean.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, I'm bringing person number 1 in. And what I'm doing is mentally scanning her body to see what areas I might feel. I'm getting an impression on the right side of her body, um, probably well, the immediate impression I'm getting is something to do with her hip, her right hip. Um,
That might be accurate.
okay, I'm going to focus in on that for just a moment. I usually try to take a look at three hot spots that come out. Um, the right, when I look at her right hip, I'm not sure whether she's had a hip replacement or is due for a hip replacement, but I do see some kind of fracture
I'm
there.
not aware of that.
But
I'm not
uh,
sure.
uh,
Don't have
okay,
that information.
at the same time, I almost have the impression that she has had a hip replacement, but we'll let that go for now. And I'm getting I'm getting a feeling about her heart. Um, that's the next area that I'm drawn to at this point. Something about one of the valves in her heart.
I don't have that information.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll just leave that and see. I got an immediate impression of something that's kind of S shaped. I'm gonna try. I'm not sure where that's located. Maybe in the area of her abdomen or something like that.
I believe that might be accurate.
Oh, okay. So maybe intestines or I don't. Again, some of this might be just me or whatever. But diverticulitis just popped into my mind.
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay. Okay. Good. Let me look at that a little bit more. I got the next thing that popped in is 7 years. I don't know whether she's had it for 7 years or what. But 7
Yes,
years seems to.
that's accurate.
Okay. Good. Okay. Well, what I'm going to do right now is to project some healing to that. And one of the things that I do when I project healing, during what I'm doing, I imagine myself in what I call the chapel of the mind, which is a chapel that happens to be one of the first churches that I served in. And there's a freestanding altar, and I imagine the person lying on the altar. And I'm not in the chapel alone because of my own theological beliefs. Jesus is with me, and he's helping me to do this scan of the body and find these places. And then when I do the healing, I do a sort of laying on of hands. I put my hand over the area that needs healing. Jesus puts his hand over mine, and the healing power goes from him through me to her. So I'm doing that now. Okay. And now one of the things that I do at the end of this kind of process, this healing, is it's just a general. I always use the statement, "Into God's hands I commend your spirit," because that's what's important. Okay. Now we'll move on to person number 2.
Okay.
Okay. Is she blonde, or was she blonde?
I don't have that information.
Okay. 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 Which is the first impression that I got. And I got an impression of an apron. I haven't actually started the scan yet, but sometimes I get these sort of little
Yeah.
peripheral things. Does an apron make sense? Does an apron make sense? Or you don't have that information?
I don't have that information.
Okay. And some of these things you might later on want to subtly check with these people.
Yeah.
Because maybe I'm getting something that, again, and you just don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, again, this may just be me, but something with her brain. I'm getting an impression that I got years ago from somebody else. I don't know if this makes any sense at all, but a lapsed synapse in the right occipital lobe of the brain.
A lot of that makes sense.
Okay, and that could cause something else. I mean, I know the occipital lobes control vision, so she may have a vision problem.
That I'm not aware of.
Okay, but at least let me go into her brain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not getting too much further with that, but at least, okay, we'll leave that one for the moment. We'll
Okay.
put some healing on that in a minute. Now I'm going to scan the rest of it. Now this is going to sound odd, and again, you know, it may just be me, but somehow I'm attracted to her navel. I don't know whether there may be a problem there, or hernia is coming into my mind at this point. I mean, people, I know that I've had hernia surgery. People can live with hernias for years
Yeah.
and not know it. Her right foot, I just got a strong impression about her right foot. Something, I don't know if it's a nerve thing or something with fungus or something like that, but that's what I'm getting.
Yeah. I think that's correct.
Okay, let me take a look at that a little bit closer. Yeah, I can see some kind of deformation of her toenails and discoloration. Maybe. Well, now again, sometimes it's hard to tell whether it's my subconscious that's throwing things in.
Yeah.
Diabetes. I don't know if that has anything to do
I'm
with
unaware of that.
with her foot. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to put one hand on her. I only have two hands. I can't put one on her foot, one on her navel, and one on her head. So I'm going to just kind of do a general healing thing here. Does she wear glasses?
Yes, I believe so. Whenever she needs to.
Okay.
Reading.
Okay. Because I saw her wearing glasses. And I also see, now again, you know, who knows? I see her hair in a bun in the back.
She wears her hair in a ponytail a lot.
Okay. 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 I'm back.
Yes.
That's what I can do for the moment. So tell me now, Jen. I seem to be more accurate with your person than I was with Dean's. So what can you tell me now? I mean, I've already told you everything that I felt, but can you give me some feedback about the foot and all that?
Well, I only know some of the things that she's told me. And I know she was having problems with her foot last fall. And she goes to the doctor quite frequently. She's got a lot of little ailments here and there. So I know she had a problem with her feet at one point. And I'm not sure about the navel or anything like that. But she has had some scans of her head. And she's getting ready to have more scans. And if it's more questionable, then she's going to have to see a neurologist.
Okay. Well, you might, that the phrase that I use, the lapsed synapse in the right occipital lobe of her brain, you might just tuck that away and
Yeah.
let me know sometime in the future if you know after she's had
Yeah.
the scans, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll definitely let you know.
Okay. And now, who had the diverticulitis?
No, you were right. That's absolutely correct.
Is that right?
The person I gave you, but you were also, and I didn't know this, you were also correct about the arteries. The person was listening and sent me a message. I didn't know that. So when you were talking about the heart, I didn't know those problems.
Okay.
So
Well,
that's why I was like, I don't have that information. And then a message came through and said, no, that's right. So,
well, not bad.
well, I think it was. I mean, I think on my person, I won't go into the details, but the hip, it was the location, I think, more than the actual hip. Do you know what I mean? But the other two things were dead on. So the hip thing was right locationally, but it was the other two were like literally diagnoses, like you'd gone to see a doctor, which was pretty staggering, to be honest. The heart thing, I thought, I wonder, and then I got the message. Yes, that's right. I just didn't tell. I had never told you. I was like, okay.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, see. Good. That's good feedback for me. And if in the future, you can give me any more feedback about both of these people, that would be great. I certainly wish them well.
Well, I appreciate your prayers and your healing energies as well. That was wonderful.
Sure. And that one of the things about this whole process is, part of the idea is that when you are in an alpha level of consciousness, you are able to project I think the phrase Sylvia used to use is, you're able to project your intelligence to any point or place anywhere in the universe, and be aware of actions taking place, and be aware of abnormalities. So that's how I see what I'm doing. It's sort of a combination of me projecting my intelligence to them, and with the visualization that I do in my own mind, bringing them to me. So it's a combination. It's not just me. It's not like me going to their house and going into their bedroom or something like that. That's creepy. And looking at them, but rather kind of bringing them to me. Usually in the method that Sylvia uses is, you have a mental laboratory, and in this laboratory you have a mental screen, and you bring the body into the screen and you look at it. Back again in the 70s, when I was first learning about Silva and learning about Christian meditation, and I was teaching meditation. That's what my book, Be Still and Know, is all about. I began to kind of put these two worlds together, the psychic and the spiritual, and had people who are in meditation create this chapel of the mind, into which they could go, first of all, to help themselves and to be present with Jesus, or whatever your religious tradition is. You could bring that person in, and also bring in other people who were sick, whom you wanted to pray. When I was teaching meditation, I did not teach people to detect illnesses like I did. I would only teach them how to project healing to people who had illnesses that they were aware of. Because for one thing, again, that kind of, if I was my partners, that I could do something, that I could go and see them psychically, see these, they would, woo, witchcraft, Father Ed is a witch.
Yeah.
And I wanted to avoid that at all costs. But people understand bringing someone to Jesus, or bringing someone into church and praying for them and getting healing. So that was all I did in terms of teaching them how to do it.
Yeah.
Because I feel it's just like anything. Everybody can do what I just did with training and experience and practice. Some people will be better at it than others. Just like, with music, you watch something like America's Got Talent, and you see these people on there. Some of them, when they're doing the auditions, are awful. They think they're wonderful.
Mhm.
They think they're God's gift to music, but you hear the first 3 notes, and God bless
Yeah.
them. They're
Yeah.
awful. But then again, there are other people. I was just watching. I think it was America's Got Talent, and there was this 11-year-old girl who was, wow. She sounded like she had been singing for 30 years.
Yeah.
Because she has a natural talent for that. Some people have very natural talents for doing these kinds of psychic things, and I think that's great. But some people, the rest of us, everybody can be taught how to do it.
Mhm.
I think. And that's one of the reasons I wrote my meditation book. It's one of the reasons why I'm on this show, because I think, it's important for people to understand that healing, psychic healing, spiritual healing, is not just about the healer.
Mhm.
There are people who are healers, because my belief is that all healing is self-healing.
Yeah.
You have the power yourself to heal yourself, and the role that I have is that of a catalyst or a conduit or whatever. I'm a catalyst for your own healing, the healing power that you've been given as a human being. So there we are.
Oh,
I'm
my
looking at
battery
my
goes low.
notes.
Hang on a
I
second.
have
My battery.
a big whiteboard over here with notes that I put on it.
Oh, nice.
Make sure I get all everything.
And if people want to get those books, they're just in fact, I know they're available on Amazon, right? But is there any website or anything
That's
that
right.
you have as well you would point people at, or just do an Amazon
Not-
search? Or
Not at the moment. Yeah, Amazon search, and you just put Edward Schultz, Schultz, and or books by Edward Schultz, or just my name should be enough
Odd.
to get those. When I write, I don't use Ed, EDD. I use my proper name, Edward. Oh, where'd Jen go?
I think
I'm messing with my camera.
Her camera failed. The joys
It
of
it
Is
stopped
there?
on its own. That's very interesting.
maybe the psychic, maybe the healing stripped the energy from your camera.
I thought it said low
That
battery,
could be.
and then it died,
Ah.
but it just came back on. So
Well,
interesting.
we'll project some healing to your battery,
Yeah.
some energy.
Who knows?
And now I know you also wrote a pixie book, but I thought maybe we should save that for next time, because we can go down
Sure. Yeah.
the alley of the
Oh.
fair folk next time instead of starting it after the healing, because they're
Sure.
both fascinating
That'd be good.
topics. And I love it when you come on and do your various psychic experiments, Ed. It's always
Yeah, they're fun.
it's always so fascinating, and just sit
You
to
know,
Yeah.
I enjoy doing it, and it also helps give me the stimulus to practice, because you
Yeah.
get lazy, and I hadn't actually done what I did tonight, which is basically it's a form of remote viewing, but this kind of, again, I hate to use the word diagnosis, but this specific sort of remote viewing I haven't done in a long time, so I wasn't even sure what my accuracy would be, if at all. So I'm pleased with the results that I have.
Yeah, I'm amazed, to
Yeah.
be honest. I know some of the people
you hit a
watching
lot of
were as
things.
well.
Hmm.
Did you have any other questions for Ed before we say goodnight and let him retire? Or
Well, I mean, I thought he did really good on number 2.
he did great on number
So,
one.
I mean, he
so
hit on some things. I mean, not everybody has an issue going on that number 2 has
Yeah.
or had. So,
yeah. No,
Well,
yeah,
I-
it's good.
I would just like to mention, a lot of my background in the psychic stuff comes from my experience with the Silva method. And if people are interested in that, now I don't get any money for this. This is not a commercial or anything like that. But if you go on YouTube and you put in Silva method, SILVA, a lot of what I studied in class and had to pay a lot of money for is now available free online. So, if people are interested in learning how to do what I did, that's one of the ways that they can find out about it. It doesn't cost any.
Thank you.
Of course, you
Nancy
pay
Malcolm
their
would be,
courses, but you go ahead.
Nancy Malcolm had been commenting along with a number of other people throughout. Just said, "Thank you for what you do, Ed. You do a great service."
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for watching. I certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, I wasn't writing the comments that much tonight because I was paying attention to chatting to you and to what you do. But let's get you back on again. It's been too long since we had you. I think this is our biggest gap between having you on, because this is about the fourth time we've had you on, and this gap seemed to be longer. So let's get you back later this year. Let's not wait until 2023.
Sure, sounds good to me. It's always a pleasure talking with both of you. You're two of my favorite people.
Oh, you're one of my favorite people, Ed. You're the third baby anyway in this group.
Yeah.
So we need to have you on more.
Dean, I love your accent.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I really do.
It's very nice. I love everybody's accent on this show because they're mostly Americans.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, until we chat next, you take care of yourself, Ed. I'll talk to you privately as I do from time to time on the phone anyway. But until next time, keep it weird.
Okay. Will do.
Keep it weird.
Thank you for joining us tonight. If you're interested in checking out more episodes, you can find us at talkingweird.com. If you haven't already, please like the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Talking Weird Podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to Talking Weird. We're available on most podcast platforms and YouTube. And if you do enjoy the show, please leave us a review. Dean and I would really appreciate it. Until then, stay safe and keep it weird.